I don't usually speak on things like this on here. Not because they don't matter, but because I know how easy it is to let something this heavy pull you into a place that looks like passion, but is really just pain performing out loud. And I'm also gonna let y'all know up front, this one gonna be longer than what I usually do because this deserves more than a 2 minute take, definitely. So if you're rocking with me, stay with me, please. I'm gonna try to say this with as much clarity as I possibly can. I want you to notice something. When a white life is lost in this country, regardless of the circumstances, there's a unification that happens almost immediately. A rallying, if you will, or a collective grief, a demand for accountability that the entire system mobilizes around. And I'm not saying that grief isn't real or that the loss doesn't matter, because truthfully, every life matters. But I need you to hold that image in your mind and then place right next to it every time a melanated life has been taken in this country by police, by vigilantes, by a system that decided before the body was even cold that it was justified. And watch how fast that same energy that I was talking about, the same unification, the demand for accountability, disappears. Not slows down, disappears. Our losses get a comment section full of people explaining why it made sense, why it was probably deserved or justified, why we should have just simply complied, or why the officer was scared, or why the circumstances were complicated. But their losses get verdicts and convictions. And that's not a coincidence. That's a value system revealing itself time and again. In this case, with Karmelo Anthony, is the latest example of exactly that. A 17-year-old melanated teen boy at a track meet got physically confronted and threatened by someone who came into his space looking for a problem. He defended himself, and a Texas jury, which did not contain anything remotely close to his peers, deliberated for only about 3 hours and gave him 35 years. Now, I'm not here to relitigate every detail of the case. What I want to talk about is something that runs much deeper than one verdict, because there's something that needs to be understood here. There's a pattern in this country that's so consistent, so documented, and undeniable that the only way to not see it is to choose not to look. A melanated teen defends himself from a physical aggressor and gets 35 years. But watch how the public court of opinion responds to a situation that we was all just watching not too long ago, involving a white man on camera with a documented history of targeting, provoking, and threatening melanated people publicly, predicting that one of his confrontations would eventually end in one of those people's deaths. And still, a significant portion of the public finds a way to explain it, justify it, and in some cases rally behind him. And while we're being honest about the pattern, let's talk about Cyrus Carmack-Belton. Please forgive me if I mispronounce the name, but 14 years old in South Carolina, a store owner wrongfully accused him of stealing 4 bottles of water. Surveillance footage confirmed he didn't take anything. The sheriff at the time even said it wasn't justified. This man chased a child 130 yards from his store and shot him in the back while he was running away. What's the verdict? Not guilty. And here's the part that should make everybody stop and think. The defense's closing argument included the line, and I need you to really hear this. This was their quote. This was their line in the closing statement. A 14-year-old kid should not be roaming the streets with a semi-automatic pistol. That was the argument that walked the man free after shooting a child in the back. Now, I want you to sit with something. If that had been a melanated man who chased a white or an Asian 14-year-old and shot him in the back while he was running away, what verdict do you think the jury comes back with? And how fast? And what does the public court of opinion say about him while he's waiting for trial? You already know the answer, and so do I. I'm not making a legal comparison between these cases. I'm making a cultural observation about how certain human beings get viewed through completely different lenses by the same society. One gets the benefit of the doubt, context, nuance, explanation. The other gets the verdict first and the character assassination as a bonus. And I want to be specific about something because somebody's going to say we're playing the race card and we always make everything about race. Here's my question back to that. When a pattern repeats itself with this much consistency across decades, across generations, across different cases that have nothing to do with each other except for the complexion of the person being judged, at what point does calling it a pattern stop being an accusation or cop-out and start just being an observation? What I do know is this. Our presence has been criminalized in this country in ways that is so deeply embedded in the subconscious of this culture that a lot of the people who carry their bias don't even feel it operating in them when it really is. They think they're just being objective or reasonable. Hell, they even consider themselves to be fair. But they consistently read our presence as a threat, our defense as aggression, our pain as drama, and our death as acceptable, justifiable even. And I'll tell you something that hits closer to home for me, which I've never spoken on this prior to right now, but right here in my own city, a young melanated man was unalived by police not too long ago. And without any body cam footage, before any of us had the full story, the comment section on the local news page was already full of people who had decided he deserved it. Not because of evidence, but because of what he looked like. And that can't be ignored. That's not justice, and that ain't even logic. That's a real condition, one that was installed over generations, and one that's going to keep producing these outcomes until enough people are willing to sit with the discomfort of examining where it came from and what it's still doing. I don't have a perfect answer for what we do with all this. I honestly really don't. But what I do know is that silence on it doesn't protect us. It just makes the pattern easier to ignore.